Hello, I'm here with Doug to talk about Stupendous AI. And it is Friday, June 21, 2024. And so the first thing is I've got several scandals of AI behaving badly. McDonald's took 100 of their locations and they partnered with IBM and they replaced the voice ordering system with an AI. And they have now officially canceled it and they're going to throw it away. They said it's horrible, it fails. People will try to tell what they want to the voice thing, and it concludes that you want bacon on your ice cream or that you want 100 orders of chicken nuggets or something. And they're tired of this garbage. And I guess they're going back to humans listening to you to get your order, which is, I think, a real trend. Gartner in 2023 put generative AI up at the peak of the hype cycle, suggesting that this is the point where everybody gets fed up with it and notices its problems and starts abandoning their rollouts. And that seems to be
Yeah,
what's happening. Many people are asking, how much money did we spend on AI last year? And how much good did that actually give us? And the answer is not good.
yeah. Well, it's the same thing with self-checkout. We're
I've
starting
been
to see
reading a
that
lot of that.
self-checkouts. What?
Yeah, I've been reading about that. And they say that people steal a lot at the self checkout and customers don't like it. And really would be better to just have people scanning your stuff.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting. I've noticed at the self-checkouts, they're starting to station people to do the checkout for you.
Yeah, well, that would
Or
be the next step. Yeah. And I just went
yeah,
to, in fact, I just went to a store. I went to the self checkout and there was a guy there and he was offering to scan people's stuff. So he effectively made another station. And then when I checked out, there was an item with no barcode. And so I typed in a description of the item and bought it. And then I realized that was a different item that was cheaper. So I effectively stole something because it was too much bother to like get that straightened out.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
and so a few more. So Target has rolled out a helper. This is something people I'm consulting for want to do. They want to have an AI generated helper for their customer service bot. So they're going to ask it verbally a question and it's going to use chat GPT to look up the right answer to help customers. And I bet, like McDonald's, they'll probably cancel this in a hurry. I've told people this is not a brilliant idea because the bots just lie. We were just talking about
yeah,
before we started recording. If you just had like an FAQ system with keywords, the old school, I think it would work a lot better because you get the correct information and your employees will rapidly learn how to find it. They don't need the only point of this, I think, and I bet the employees have noticed this, the only reason you would have an AI is because you're planning to fire all your customer service reps and just let the bot talk directly to the customers.
yeah,
That would be,
yeah,
and people that have tried that have ended up in big trouble because it told them lies. And then the FTC and other government agencies have forced them to live up to the lies it promised.
interesting. Huh.
And there's a so
It's
per,
yeah, yeah, yeah. I think we're at the point where we're fed up with some technology,
more
right?
people, more and more people are fed up with LLM. In fact, there is an article which is really hilarious on from Ludicity, and this guy is a real developer, and his title is "I will fucking pile drive you if you mention AI again." And it's very funny, and it goes on for page after page explaining how everybody tells him to use AI, and he's a real data science engineer, he's a real database engineer, and he has had it. He said this stuff is garbage, it's wasting everybody's time. The normal solutions are better. It reminds me of people that hate like blockchain and cryptocurrency, just raging about how this stuff is garbage and you're wasting all this time and money. And if you just did something ordinary, like, improve your customer service, it would do you a whole lot better.
Yeah,
And, I think it's not quite as bad as he makes it sound, but it's absolutely true that a bunch of people are deploying it in unwise ways. In fact, I used to do consulting for a big bank to teach their coders to write secure code, and they were raving about how great this class is. And at the end of the year, they said, "Well, we'll get in touch with you early next year," and they never came back. So I haven't taught it for about 6 months now. And I bet what happened is somebody in the management said, "Well, we're going to fire all the programmers anyway and just replace them with Chat GPT. So why do we bother training them how to code?" And I think I have to wait for that to work its way out. Probably within another 6 months, that will crash and burn. And then they'll come back to me. Okay, well, let's go back to having humans code and teaching them how to write secure code because that miracle didn't work out so well.
yeah, yeah,
And I've been using Perplexity. Perplexity is the new AI to replace Google that is a large language model that has access to the live internet web. And on top of that, so people are now raging at Perplexity. Perplexity is unclear about exactly what they're doing, but it seems to have come out that what they do is they have a crawler that crawls the web like Google, and it just harvests some of the information about sites it finds, and then they use that for retrieval augmented generation. So you get a summary of the sort of information it found on the web, and people are getting really mad because it doesn't attribute the source. And so, and they have an AI generated podcast. I just listen to it every day, 5 minutes. Sounds pretty good too. AI generated, and I'm pretty sure the voice is also AI generated. And it summarizes today's AI news, which is pretty interesting. And the people are raging, saying they're stealing the content. They should be sued. They have no right to do this. And I'm not sure about that, but I am interested in seeing it. I've been using it. It's really quite good. It does sometimes hallucinate, but generally you get the answer you want really fast. And their AI
Hmm.
generated podcast seems fine. I'm going to keep listening to it. There are always people saying this is going to destroy the world. Everybody will go broke because all the AIs do is starve every content creator a way to make money. There won't be any more material to train the AIs on. I don't think it's going to amount to that much, but anyway,
Oh, Sam, you
yeah,
know, we have to smash all the looms. It's
I
going to
know.
put all the,
Exactly. Well, that's right. I've been through this so many times. This is why I think, when OpenAI said they were going to make general AI that was going to replace humans, and then they decided that Sam Altman was going to destroy the world, so they kicked him out as CEO
yep,
because he wasn't being sufficiently careful. And then the CEO of Microsoft was like the adult in the room saying, I've been around the block. You have this new thing. You think it's going to destroy the world. You think it's going to make everything. How about you shut up all the nonsense and we're just going to make another component of Microsoft Office to help people write letters? That's what it's really for. And all your panic and science fiction is what children think before you've been around tech for a while.
right,
There have been
right.
so many new things, and it's a new thing. So it's somewhat useful. So you build it into your products and you don't panic and freak out all so much.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Well, anyway, you've
So
got, yeah,
you're using Perplexity,
yeah,
PERPLEXITY
yeah, dot AI.
dot AI is a replacement for Google's
I
Google
tried
search.
I tried replacing it as my replacement for Google search, and I finally went back to Google because I asked it several times how to clear cookies out of my browser in various browsers, and the step-by-step was always wrong, which I've found to be true of all AIs. Every AI cannot do a tech support question. If you ask it, how do I do something, it will tell you to click on menu items that are not there
Yeah,
because
but
it just
yeah,
copies a page of a manual and it doesn't test anything. And
yeah,
coding
yeah,
too. I just
yeah.
heard on this AI generated news report driving in here. I just heard the report that the new Claude model is out, and Claude has been a better coder. And they say the new Claude model is a much better coder. It can now find correct code 60% of the time, whereas the previous version could only write correct code 30% of the time. And that matches my experience. Whereas I must say, Microsoft's product, GitHub Copilot, is wonderful. It totally writes code. All you do is like put in a comment describing the function and it fills in the whole function and gets it right. It's like a miracle. So real coders, they want that product.
Interesting.
Well, that's the thing. Microsoft knows how to clean up the defects and make a product that will actually work. Whereas Google, that invented this stuff, is just sinking in the mud because they can't make an actual product that works.
Yeah. So, Sam, related to this, have you looked at AI, meaning Apple's artificial intelligence or Apple intelligence?
Well, I read articles about it. I haven't got it,
Yeah.
of course, because you have to have the latest and greatest phone. It sounds like it will be a hit. I mean, a personal assistant like a butler that actually knows all your emails and everything. I could use, for example, if it would just read my email and tell me if something important is there, I would appreciate that because I keep missing
Yeah.
important emails. So, I mean, I think it may well turn out to actually be useful as a useful personal assistant like a secretary.
Yeah. But, my immediate thought when I heard about this was you need new hardware, right? New
You
phone.
totally, and this is something I just read today. I didn't know
Yeah.
this. Apple has, like Microsoft, they have a pro version and a home version in the phones. There's the Apple Pro phones have the latest firmware, and that's what you must have. And the ordinary Apple phones have a year old chipset, which can't do it. So, like Windows, they got a Pro and a home version. I never knew this. So, if you buy a new phone, make sure you get the Pro or you won't have the AI chips that are needed.
So, but aren't they coming out with new phones later this year?
I think so. And they said, I think you have to have
Yeah.
at least a 15 Pro to run the AI. And if you get the 15 regular, it won't run the AI.
Yeah, but I think they're doing a refresh sometime late this summer
Probably.
or early fall. Yeah. So, you know, if you know computer history and marketing, you know the Osborne effect.
Well, I
Do
don't
you
know that.
remember that?
No, but I do know you have to get it out in time to hit Christmas, or you're basically lost half your sales forever.
Yeah. So here, this was very early on in the computer industry. Osborne made the first really mass selling portable computer.
Mhm.
And we're talking, oh, shoot, maybe 1980, 81, 82 in that range. And Osborne was selling these computers as fast as they could. And Osborne was, and the kind of the limitations of this is 5.25 inch floppy disk, just to give you what the year is. And the screen, I think, was 40 characters across, and it was about a 5 inch diagonal screen. So very tiny, but for what was out there in the marketplace, this was incredible. People were buying these like crazy. Then they came along, and I believe, if I remember right, they were selling 35,000 of these a month.
Mhm.
And then the I guess maybe one of the computer fairs, or one of the product announcements came along, and Osborne was proud to say, the Osborne one is doing well, but wait, 6 months from now, we're going to have the Osborne 2.
Oh,
It's going to have a larger display. It's going to have a 70 column display, not a 40 column display. The
right.
disk drives are going to be double sided, double density, not single sided, single density.
Uh,
And Osborne sales immediately stalled. And within 2, 3 months, they were out of business.
yeah, that happens a lot. And I've
Yep.
read, and it reminds me of something I heard on Keith Olbermann's podcast, which is pretty fun. He was hired to advertise Boston Market, the restaurants,
Yep.
like in malls. And he made a commercial, which at that time was hugely successful, where they had the pictures of all these like skinny models in bikinis, and he came down and said, "Why don't you eat something?" And this was really popular and went everywhere. And then they found out that the only effect of this article is what's advertising their lunch menu, because they were previously only open for dinner, and now they're open for
Oh,
lunch.
right,
And
right.
so the
Yeah.
only thing that happened is all the people that were going to buy a $20 lunch dinner went in and bought a $10 lunch instead, and they figured out it was costing them $10 per customer to have this commercial out there. So they canceled it. This is often the case.
Marketing.
You have
Yeah.
negative consequences. But I remember when Vista came out, Microsoft was told manufacturers that would run with half a gig of RAM. And then, like in October, they said, "Oh no, you need a whole gig." And HP and everybody said, "What? We just manufactured millions of machines with the specs you told us, and now you told us it won't run Vista right before Christmas." So they invented Vista Home Edition to try to run on that. And then it didn't actually release it until like February. So they missed Christmas and ruined everything.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. Timing is everything, isn't it?
Well,
And yeah,
and also Christmas is
yeah,
everything. I think
yeah,
many American retailers, I think they sell like more than half of all the stuff they'll sell in retail all year at Christmas.
yeah. The other thing is, so with so it's called the Osborne effect.
Yeah,
If you take any marketing classes, I'm sure this is a classic case study.
yeah.
And I think who learned a lesson from this was Steve Jobs, because Apple was in that, arena at the same time. And if you notice how Apple works, they're completely silent on their products and features.
Oh, yeah. It's incredible. He even
Yeah,
sued like a dozen of his own employees for leaking things.
yeah,
People said, "You never say anything about any Apple product. Steve always is the guy who announces everything his way at his time. And if you say it's like more secret than the NSA, if you breathe a word about the new thing, you're fired."
yeah. But Apple doesn't even mention what new features will be coming out, and until weeks before, or maybe a month before the actual product comes out.
Yeah.
So Osborne effect, if you want to look that up,
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. Well, marketing
Anyway,
is important.
Yeah,
Yeah,
marketing is important. Marketing can make or break tech company easily. Any company, but tech
yeah,
companies. So here's one. This is from a government site. I picked this up on Marketplace, which is public media. What is it? PRI, whatever NPR is turned into.
yeah,
Okay, and this is the selling of copycat or counterfeit, or maybe I should say copycat and counterfeit goods. And this is a $2 trillion a year per business. This is more the amount of merchandise, and most of this merchandise is being sold online. Some of it is inferior product. A lot of it is name brand fashion merchandise, Gucci. I'm not big on fashion, but $3,000 purses and things that you can buy for 2,000, but they're knockoffs, they're ripoffs. And the companies who actually own the copyright, I'm not sure if it's a copyright, but the patent, whatever it is, who are the actual owners,
yeah,
are continually suing these companies,
yeah,
and companies like Amazon, eBay, and some of the online marketplaces, they're all there that will do the takedown. The problem is, as soon as you take it down, it pops up as another company in a different place. But $2 trillion a year, and
yeah,
I believe that is more than the gross domestic product, I think I read, of 196 countries
yeah,
around the world, which mean, and I think, what do we have? 206, 208 countries.
something like that.
So,
Yeah. And I remember I heard about this a few years ago that there was a guy selling
did
fake
you?
Cisco stuff. And they said that Cisco is really mad because most of the products coming in for repair are knockoffs. That's why they're broken.
What do you do? Anyway, that's kind of my, when you buy stuff. What else is interesting is if you ever watch Shark Tank shows like that, people come up with a unique, innovative product. And the problem is, by the time they get it to market, by the time they put it on Amazon, you've already got 50 knockoffs selling for as low as 99 cents.
And the same thing for books. I heard Kara Swisher talk about this.
Oh, really?
She wrote a book, and by the time her book was published, like 2 months later, there were already like 100 fake books based on sort of AI with this pretending to be her book online.
Yeah, yeah. So, the fakes continue. We keep talking about that.
Yeah,
Political ads, it's all going to be out there. It's even more easier to accomplish and more difficult to detect and shut down.
absolutely. So it's the brave new world.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, what's your next story, Sam?
Well,
You got
I've
something
got
good?
Well, I've got what you could regard as the positive take on AIs. People that are
Okay.
enjoying AI, like Nazis. The Nazis are really enjoying AI. They're using it to develop a supercharged radicalization and fundraising, and they're even making weapon blueprints and bombs with AI. So the Nazis are, a political group that have a desire to, influence people, and they're finding AI to be a great boon. And another group is there's a Chinese sex doll manufacturer who guarantees there's going to be AIs with personalities soon for sex dolls. So that's something that's been one of the science fiction tropes back to the dawn of time is the robot sex companion, and it's coming. So it's a brave new world we live in. Those are
Interesting. That's what always pushes the internet, doesn't it?
and everything. Every communication medium is first applied to porn, and it makes sense because there's a demand for it. And that's why, cryptocurrency and everything's first used for crime, because the only reason you'd use the new weird thing is because you can't use the normal channels because the product
Yeah.
you're pushing is illegal or scandalous or forbidden somehow. So those are, of course, the early adopters of every new thing.
Yeah. Gotcha. Gotcha.
Yeah. Anyway,
All right. So what's your next story here?
oh, well, let's go to you. You can do yours, then I'll go back to
Okay.
mine.
Well, here's an interesting one. Everybody's heard of Bill Gates, obviously,
Yeah.
and Bill is kind of taken the got out stepped out of the limelight, so to speak. And I find it really interesting that people are still attacking him over the COVID, the virus.
Oh, saying that he
Um,
put chips in the virus,
oh yeah,
that's
yeah,
like
that's
Obama was not really American born. That's like a Donald Trump kind of a QAnon garbage.
yeah, yeah. So Bill is kind of in his, I guess, retirement years, so to speak. Has been really working on his foundation and trying to help the world.
He did
And
something
a
with
lot of,
malaria, I think. He did something to fight malaria, and that was good. Yeah.
yep, yep. So, he's working in the background. It's pretty interesting if Bill and Melinda Gates have separated or possibly divorced. I'm not sure where that stands. Melinda just retired, I believe, from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. But if you look online, there's a TED Talk that Bill and Melinda, when they were together, talked about giving away their money. And they talked about how difficult it was to give away the money, but not just the giving away the money is the easy part, but is making sure that the money had a positive effect or achieved some desired effect, if you will.
Of course, because crooks will just steal it.
Yeah, and these are foundations, so there are companies that are saying, we need clean drinking water in Africa, which they do. And the problem is the plan that they have is not really a plan. There are no
Right.
milestones, there's no achievements.
Right.
And Bill's saying, look, if you're going to take money, even though you're a nonprofit, you still need to operate like a business. You want to have outcomes, you want to have goals, you want to meet those goals. And he
Mhm.
said for the first 5 years that they would give money away, they were totally frustrated by it.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting talk, is where I'm getting at. So you can find that on TED.
It
But
sounds
this
like
week,
it sounds
oh
quite comparable to what you have to do as the CEO of a company. You have to have milestones and progress and ch-
well,
determine
yeah,
whether your investment's actually
objectives,
working out or not. Yeah.
yeah, objectives. You use the tools that companies use.
Yeah.
And what he said is that there's nobody being held accountable. The money is being spent anyway. That's not my story right now. But the big one is that one of the projects or one of the companies Bill Gates have been investing in since around 2008 has been next generation or maybe half step generation nuclear power.
Right.
And they've now broken ground in Wyoming of a new reactor that'll be sodium based.
Right.
And I don't know if you're up on the difference, and I'm not sure if this is a thorium reactor. Do you know? I
It's
don't know.
it's highly enriched uranium, and that is the problem because
Yeah.
that fuel is only obtainable from Russia. It's not made anywhere else, which is a really political bad move right now to make a product that requires importing the essential ingredient from Russia.
Yeah. So this is a sodium cooled reactor,
Yeah.
not a water cooled reactor. And I've done a little bit of research on this over the years. And that's why I'm saying this is sort of a next iteration reactor in that they're using sodium instead of water.
Right. And it
The
runs hotter and is more efficient, apparently.
It runs hotter, it's more efficient, but if there's a problem, and it starts to go into meltdown mode, the sodium will solidify and prevent the Chernobyl effect from happening, if you will.
Well, that's good. But the fuel
S-
itself is a problem. Another problem with the fuel, they're trying to make it here, is this fuel is almost weapons grade, whereas the normal low enriched fuel is not usable for weapons. So having large quantities of this fuel being produced and shipped and stored around raises a risk of nuclear terrorism.
Yeah, yeah. So they're breaking ground on this,
Yeah.
which is kind of a step. And we'll see. It is a sodium-based reactor, so best of luck to them. And Sam, you have a background in physics. You know that this is, if we're going to solve the energy problem, It's got to be, this is the way to go, or at least that's what I believe. And the reason is because the amount of energy that you can extract from nuclear reactions, right? Like this, is just millions of times greater than coal, gasoline, any of the other methods that we have currently.
It is, but there's a huge problem with the fuel. In fact, even like 10 years ago, I was reading documents saying that we would run out of nuclear fuel before we ran out of oil. And the cure for that is, of
Hmm.
course, the breeder reactor, which they proposed for years, but they never built it because then you create tons more radioactive waste. That's why there are some disadvantages. Now, it's probably better than burning coal, but I think solar and wind are probably much more practical. And of course, people keep talking about fusion. Fusion is what would
Yeah,
really solve it, but that appears to be a few decades away still. That then you'd have
yeah,
nuclear power that doesn't create a lot of awful waste.
yeah. And if there is a meltdown with fusion, we're dealing with tritium. The half
Yeah.
life is 10
7 years.
years.
Yeah.
Yeah, is 4 years.
So it's not
I think
much.
3, 4. Yeah. So within a decade, a place like Chernobyl would be completely inhabitable.
Right, right.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
you wouldn't, it's so fusion would be great, but we don't have the technology yet. But we're making good advances. In the meantime, we won't run fission for long if we really run it at all.
yeah, yeah.
I
This
mean,
this is a half step, if you will.
right.
The
It's a
major,
couple of decades to get us over
yeah,
knocking off the fossil fuel.
yeah. But there is ITER, ITER, I believe, in France.
Hmm.
They're building a large fusion reactor that's still under construction, kind of on the level of the Hadron Collider,
Right.
if you will,
A
a
prototype.
project of that scope. Yeah, and Lawrence Livermore National Lab has had the lasers that they've been working on for about 25 years,
Right.
and they're making baby steps. So they are making progress, but it's still slow.
Yep. So we'll end up eventually at Back to the Future, Mr. Fusion, where you just pour in
Yeah,
water.
yeah,
That's a little
yeah.
ways off yet.
I agree. I agree. But this is, if you're following this, exciting. We'll see where this goes.
Yeah.
I'm sure Gates has a lot of detractors saying you're going to poison the world.
But there's the article Caitlin found that showed that the entire state of California was 100% running on renewable energy for like 90% of the last month. So wind and solar, in fact, can meet our needs now.
Yeah. Well, during the day, right?
No, this was for the whole month.
24/7.
Yeah. There's less need at night, and they're able to have enough batteries, I guess, and stuff. So,
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. I've got a battery and I use it to offset the high rate. So
is
in
it
other words,
is it a Tesla Powerwall or what?
I have an Enphase battery. It's a 5K battery,
Hmm.
and I use it. I charge it from the grid from PG&E during the night, and I pay about 25 cents. And during the summer, during peak hours when it discharges, and PG&E is charging us 64 cents, I'm effectively paying 25 cents,
Right.
but you have to add in there the cost of the battery, plus the cost of the degradation of the battery, plus the heat loss. So
Right.
I'm not really sure what the actual numeric value is. Um,
Right.
but I'm wondering if it's kind of marginally worth it,
Yep.
even with a spread of 40 cents. I might be saving 10 cents there, maybe 15. I don't know.
Yeah, this is why the government tax incentives really were important, and now they've stopped. But the few
Yeah,
$1,000s that the government would add really would sweeten the pot for this stuff.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. All right. So enough on energy. What else you got? You got another one for
I
us?
got one more, which I
One
saw
more.
with amazement. Well, two
Yes.
related stories, but they claim there's a ticking time bomb. Now, we have about 10,000 satellites in orbit. Most of them are SpaceX uh, satellites for his internet thing. And they're typically in low Earth orbit. They orbit for about 5 years, then the orbit decays and they burn up in the atmosphere, which is okay. And they have to replace them. But now they're saying they're destroying the ozone layer because they contain aluminum, and the products of the aluminum burning up in the atmosphere is enough to make a difference. And I am rebelling against this statement. And I went and looked it up, and the official NASA document says that 48 tons of meteorites fall on the Earth every day. So, how many tons of satellites are there? I find it very
Well,
hard to believe that a few thousand satellites decaying in a year can possibly add up to enough to make any difference.
so, but isn't the aluminum, isn't that acting as a catalyst?
Yes, apparently. But isn't there some aluminum in those space rocks?
I don't think so.
Maybe that's it then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we need to do a little bit more research on that.
Yeah. I mean, it was,
Uh,
they claim people are worried about it and they hadn't thought of it before. So maybe they need to make the satellites out of something else or something.
yeah, and are you saying there's 48 tons that are added to the weight of the Earth every year?
Yes. Although, of course,
Okay.
there's also atmosphere escaping from the Earth. So I don't know if it actually changes the mass of the Earth, but that's how much meteorite falls each day. And that's
No,
why I
year.
thought, no, each day, 48 tons a day.
48 tons a day?
Yeah. That's why I really feel like satellites can't be anything compared to that.
Well, unless again the aluminum's a catalyst
Yeah,
and
but
it remains
I know, but even
yeah,
if there's like 1 part per million aluminum in those meteorites, it's adding up to more than all the
yeah,
satellites,
yeah.
I would think. That's the part I'm not getting. But
All
you'll
right,
see.
let's check on that, Sam.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
let's
all.
take a look on that. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
it's plausible, I guess, is what we should say, or questionable.
Well, you make an interesting defense of it. I think we need more information. Which,
We
by the
need
way,
more.
that reminds me of another one, which I thought I added and I forgot, is Kaspersky just got banned today.
Oh, do tell.
In 2017, Kaspersky leaked NSA secrets. There was a story that came out in 2017. I don't know if any of this is true, and I'm beginning to suspect it's not true, but there was a hacker that called Guccifer 2 that claimed to be Ukrainian, but was really the Russian military leaking out NSA secrets. Their tools to hack into routers and such. And they got them, they said, because a NSA contractor, in violation of security policy, put them on his home laptop, which had Kaspersky antivirus, which detected them as suspicious and sent them to Kaspersky for analysis. And Kaspersky said, we didn't hand them over to the government. The government hacked into our servers and stole them without permission. But that was why the US responded by banning Kaspersky on all military and government machines. But
Hmm.
you could still get it for home users. And I was just talking to my students in my class today, and one of them was using Kaspersky at home. And today, the Biden administration has announced that Kaspersky sale and support of Kaspersky is banned in the entire US for any purpose. So even if you have Kaspersky, you will not get any more updates after September. And that ends all business of Kaspersky here. And they listed 12 top executives of Kaspersky individually to have their assets seized, like international criminals, but not the CEO, Kaspersky himself. And
Any idea why?
the Register had an argument, and they said this is because they say Kaspersky could be influenced by their government, which of course is a fair statement. Their government could go to Kaspersky and demand, we want you to put like a backdoor in the product to infect those Americans or give us the data you harvested from them or something. And they would, of course, have to comply. Of course, the same thing's true in America. They would just send you a national security letter and demand that you hand over all the data, and you totally do it here. So I don't know if we can claim that's immoral, but it's certainly true. That's why I've been myself and telling students I wouldn't put any Russian software on your machine while we're at war with Russia. That just
Yeah.
seems like a bad move. But it
Yeah.
is,
Well,
but
wait.
legally,
Technically, we're not at war with Russia, are we?
we're having a proxy war with Russia, just like in
Yeah.
Vietnam. And
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
things are very hostile.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
that's right. We're not
Yeah.
technically directly at war with Russia yet, but it's such that it's very unwise to run a product with high privileges on your machine like an antivirus that's under the control of
Agreed.
Russia. And
Yeah.
but however, I'm thinking like the TikTok ban, it's not clear that the US government has the right to do this. And they're claiming there was a rule passed in 2018 that gives under the Trump administration that gives them the right to do this. Arguably, it's kind of a violation of the free market and free speech to tell random consumers in America that you can't buy a foreign product if you want to. And like I say, they may not be allowed to ban TikTok for the same reason. They're going to have to claim that this is some kind of demonstrable imminent threat. And just like TikTok, all they have is a hypothesis. The Chinese government might do something bad in TikTok, but we have no evidence they have. The Russian government might do something bad through Kaspersky, but we have no evidence that we have. Can you really ban it for the whole nation on tenuous arguments like that? I guess we're going to see.
Yeah, yeah,
That TikTok
yeah.
ban is already in court, and it's going to be in court for at least another year. Uh, it seems kind of like government overreach to me to ban it for everybody.
Well, I believe on the TikTok ban, and maybe you can fill in some details on this, that they're trying to use a law from the Civil War era or around that time.
Yeah, I think
Does,
I
does
saw it.
that? Yeah, yeah. So it's the ownership of an American company or a company that can influence Americans, like public media or newspapers.
Yeah, this is what I've heard. I've heard that there
Yeah.
already is the case. This is why Rupert Murdoch had to get American citizenship to make Fox News. You're not allowed to own a TV station if you're not a citizen. And so they might be able
Ah,
to, so they might be able to use that law on TikTok. For Kaspersky, there's another law they're thinking of using, and I don't really understand it. Anyway, I think both of these things are going to be tied up in court for a while, and it really matters because, I mean,
yeah.
to what extent can the government start restricting stuff when they haven't really proven that it's actually doing any harm or anything?
And Sam, the reality is you could get a VPN product and proxy that you're outside the US and get the
Well, yeah,
software
and
anyway.
I think people will do that for TikTok. I don't think anybody cares about
Yeah.
Kaspersky that much. You could just get Norton or McAfee or something. Uh, Kaspersky is
You
not
know,
that important
yeah.
to your life, but a lot of people, TikTok really is important. But their problem is the people that really want TikTok are the people who are earning money there, and they will only earn money if a lot of other Americans are using it. So it really is bad for them. And they're
Yeah.
already complaining. Like one state already banned TikTok, and they got sued by the creators. I think Montana, and the creators in there
Utah.
already. Yeah, so, and
Isn't
the
it
creators
Utah?
already complained and said, "Here you are ruining our business. I can't be a influencer." And there's the guy, Marcus Hutchins. Remember him? He's the guy. He's
No.
the hacker. He's a British hacker who turned off the Not Petya attack, which was a cyber attack based on leaked NSA secrets, by the way, that was flooding and shutting down hospitals all in the UK. But he found the off switch and turned it off before it hit America. So arguably saved a bunch of American lives. So he came to DEF CON about 5 years ago to give a talk about this and gave his talk and was hailed as a hero. And then the FBI arrested him because like 10 years before, he wrote some banking malware. And so he had to stay in America. He couldn't go back to the UK. He's been here forever since. The EFF gave him some lawyers and he defended himself and he didn't have to go to prison, but it took years. So he's living in America and he just put on Mastodon. He just quit his job because he's making more money as an influencer than he was working as a security professional. Now, I've heard this
Oh
that teenagers, if
man.
you ask them these days, they all want to become influencers. And I had a student who was really young in one of my classes, and he was always trying to get people to go to his YouTube channel to watch him play video games. And I thought, what is this nonsense? And people tell me, you're an old fuddy duddy. That's how people make money now. People pay to watch them play video games on Twitch. So apparently,
Yeah.
this really happens. I guess if you're famous at all, if you can get like a lot of people to come to your channel, that money is more than you would make at a real job, apparently.
That's my understanding as well. I know that there was a 3-year-old little boy from Texas. I think he was making $7 million a year opening boxes.
And I think, well, I guess it doesn't really, it's about like any pop singer or big actress, they're just the hit for a while. Like a singer that has one song that's a hit. The problem is you'll go out of fashion pretty fast.
Some of yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean you can. But Sam, is this any different than TV in the 50s when you had companies or you had stars that were endorsing cigarettes,
Yeah.
um,
Yep.
dishwashing soap or
Yeah.
laundry soap? What else did they do?
Oh, athletes endorsing stuff. And
Yeah, yeah,
I remember there were around the time of the 67 of Laugh-In, there were characters whose entire shtick was like one line. Like the woman that says, "Where's the beef?" There were
yeah,
people who just had one viral moment, 3 seconds long, and that made them famous and was probably worth a lot of money for a while.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
So I guess
yeah,
it's that way still.
yeah, yeah.
it probably looks like an easy job to young people, just like being a rock band looks like an easy job. And I
But
think,
a lot of this is timing,
yeah,
personality.
yeah,
Um, there are a lot of unpredictable uh, traits, characteristics that you need to
yeah. I
be
like,
successful with this.
yeah, I'm conservative in these matters. I like the Sharia law where you can't earn money without actually putting in a day's work. There's no such thing as easy money. Uh, Everything is the product of diligent work.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Well, Sam, I got one kind of
yeah.
unrelated story, but if you grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area, which I don't think you did,
Nope.
but we have a housing shortage here, as everybody's been complaining about.
Oh, yes.
And in 1960, there was a plan to fill in entire San Francisco Bay
Oh, yeah.
and make essentially San Francisco Bay a creek or a small river down to San Jose, Sunnyvale, Milpitas, down that way.
Well, they did fill in about half of it, right? From
No,
the
not
beginning.
half.
Well, from the very
About it.
beginning, it used to be about twice as big, and they filled in a lot to build. That's what I saw. I saw maps where it used to be a whole lot bigger. They did, in fact, fill
Well,
out a lot of the edges.
yeah, I think it depends what you define as the Bay. I think what
Yeah.
you're referring to is South Bay
Yeah.
versus going up towards Sacramento in that area.
I don't know.
Anyway, I was told that 1/9 of the bay has been filled in
That might
since
be it.
before the gold rush. Yeah.
Yeah.
So in downtown San Francisco, like Sacramento Street, somewhere around there, there's a plaque that says this is the original edge of the bay.
There's that whole rich district built on landfill that
Yeah.
fell down during the earthquake. I
Oh,
forget the
that
name.
was
The Marina
the
District, right?
Marina District. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I believe that was also Phil.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So it's kind of interesting. The group that started out were three women. And if you're familiar with UC, one of them was Clark Kerr from Clark Kerr campus, one of the UC regents. It was his wife, and two others that started this whole Save the Bay campaign. And it was predicted that by 2020, the entire bay would be filled in, leaving a little bit of water in the middle.
Yeah.
And one of the goals was to use one of the mountains or several of the mountains, San Bruno, fill in the bay. That's where they do some of the bay from or some of the fill from. Berkeley was going to extend and roughly increase the size of the city by about 50% and put high rises, apartments out in the bay so it'd be closer to San Francisco. So that that plan was knocked down, which was pretty interesting because the people that were behind this were big money to build housing. Leslie Salt, if you remember, they have the salt flats that are down towards
Hmm.
Hayward,
Oh, yeah.
Union City, Fremont. Those salt flats have now been returned to marshland. They're doing well,
Hmm.
but they are one of the victims of this. That their plan was to put in condos on, I don't know, some type of housing, residential housing.
Yeah.
So I don't know. The Bay Area would have been completely different. We'd have more freeways, less traffic.
But I mean, you
But
would you would have more housing, but less reason to be here.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The other interesting little piece of trivia about the Bay is, I'm not sure if you know this, the color of the Bay has changed
Oh,
and it's become more gray and less blue. If you were here 10, 20 years ago and hadn't returned since, you'd notice a distinct difference in the color. And what it turns out to be is the clams, the filter feeders, aren't filtering out as much as the plankton, which now is causing the water to be more grayish in color.
so is that the effect of pollution or something?
It's that would be the immediate thought, or perhaps climate change.
Yeah.
But nope, it's neither. It turns out that there are other animals that prey on
Ah,
clams, that they're overeating the clams, and the clam population has been dramatically decimated. But this is something that is part of a cycle, and we'll probably see the clams come back. But
Oh,
it's smaller organisms like shrimp and small, I think, snails and things that will feed on the clams when they're young, and so they're not, they're not growing up. They're not as many of them.
mhm.
They're being wiped out because there are too many of these babies in there, and then eventually they go out to sea. They'll go
Yeah.
out through the Golden Gate
Yeah,
and
well,
become food for another organism.
yeah. Well, it's
Yeah,
good.
yeah,
Yeah, it's
yeah.
good that we
Anyway,
understand this stuff.
yeah. So by this year, it was predicted in 2020 that the bay would have all been filled in and there would be housing.
And I'm sure real estate developers would love that, but I'm glad they didn't do it.
Yeah, yeah. And it was a fight.
Yeah,
And the Save the Bay eventually evolved into the California Coastal Commission to save the coast or preserve the coast so that it all wouldn't become private property. And a spin-off of that, I believe, was Keep Lake Tahoe Blue, or the same thing in Tahoe, because they were selling lakefront property. And although they can't reclaim what's been sold, they did put a stop to the sale of new beachfront property in Lake Tahoe. So
yeah.
these three women, Clark Kerr's wife and two others, are what started this whole piece. So interesting story if you listen to, let's see, Bay Curious on KQED if you want the full story behind this.
Well, good. All right.
Well,
Well,
that's it for me, Sam.
yeah,
We're going to
that's it
meet
for
on
me too.
Tuesday.
Yep. So, and maybe at the usual time on Tuesday. I think I'm not teaching that day.
All right. Sounds
Okay.
good to me.
Okay.